Yung replacement cost accounting, pag pababa naman yung presyo, nasisigurado po ba natin na binababa rin accordingly ng mga oil companies? Di ba kasi pag tumataas, ang binagbabasihan nila is yung tumaas na presyo doon. Ngayon, pag pababa naman, nasisigurado ba natin na ganun din ang ginagawa ng mga oil companies, Mr. Chair?
Yes, yes, Mr. Chair. We monitor that over the years also. That's uh, basically parang bawi din pag bumaba rin yung presyo.
Pangalawa po, Mr. Chair, does the DOE have enough powers in at the present situation na kung may makita po kayo na nanamantala dun sa pagtaas at nanamantala din dun sa pagbaba na hindi nila binababa, pwede nyo silang isanction because despite the Oil Deregulation Act, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Chair, the powers it has been triggered. We're asserting that mandate triggered by the EO of the President, Mr. Chair. It's the emergency clause under the oil deregulation law, which says the government can take over or control operations of oil companies if there's an emergency.
So, Mr. Chair, ang ibig sabihin po nun, sapat na yung EO at hindi nyo kailangan ng additional immediate powers sa Kongreso po ngayon.
Mr. Chair, now we have an EO, yes, but I think there are moments that when there should be moments that are not technically emergency because there's no declaration, no? Pero dapat may circumstance that DOE should have more powers over this, Mr. Chair.
Okay, sunod po, Mr. Chair. Pag in-implement na po at binawasan yung excise tax, does the
Pwede ba,
Yes.
Kong Toby? So, yun ang tanong namin, Secretary Sharon. So, ngayon, ang power lang ng DOE in reality, in a highly deregulated industry, is just to penalize excessive profiteering, collusion, conspiracies in trade. Yan yun eh. Nagsasabwatan at saka kumikita, hoarding, etc. So, ang tanong namin is, sabi mo may extraordinary situation, which you guys are the expert, not us. Ano ba ang kinakailangan at under what circumstance na po pwede? Kasi this is something that Congress wants to grant the executive. Again, we don't want to go back to a highly regulated industry. Lilinawin natin, we are better off today than when we were in the early 90s, mid-90s, na very regulated ang oil industry. We are far better today. And in fact, we are able to respond to it better. Itong oil crisis kung nangyari noon, mas dadapa tayo. Pero ang tanong namin parati is, ano bang kinakailangan ninyong power tuwing nagkakaroon ng extraordinary circumstances para yung presyo ay magkaroon tayo ng degree of control? Whether it is baguhin ang replacement system, kung ano man, ano bang po pwede? Anong suggestion?
Mr. Chair, for example, I think there has to be triggers when the regulation comes in. No? Ngayon kasi kailangan may state of emergency. So halimbawa, like on the excise tax that was passed by Congress here, ang trigger nun, $80 per barrel with a certain average. Pwede naman something like that, Mr. Chair. For example, why am I'm considering that? Kasi we have been over this past couple of weeks, we've been trying to dissect where are the problems in the industry. It's not just Petron, Caltex, and Shell. Those are companies that have their own gas stations. But we have half of the country, which serves far-flung areas in Mindanao and Visayas and in Luzon. Those are independents. Diyan po, hindi lang po may importer ka na, may trader ka, may bulk distributor, and then the gas stations. There's not enough visibility on how those yung patong-patong nakita dyan kung anong nangyayari dyan, Mr. Chair. So, if DOE can, at the very least, dictate how much they should earn in times of those difficult times, then DOE can, the public can be more protected from profiteering and any other taking advantage of the situation, Mr. Chair.
I think malinaw naman, Secretary Sharon. Just like when we approved the excise tax, the power to suspend, there has to be very, very specific, detailed triggers kung kailan siya pwedeng i-exercise. Because once it is vague, it is general, it sends a very bad signal to the private sector or to even investors. And when that happens, we will have a worse situation because people will not bring out the supply. Mura nga ang presyo, pero wala namang magbebenta, mas worse yung ating problema. So ang tanong namin, on the triggers, kayang pag-usapan. Pero pag pinag-usapan, ano ba yung power na yon? So tama bang interpretation ko when you say that during urgent, emergency situations like today, the DOE should have the power to cap the premium or income?
Ultimately, yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
Because
maraming salamat.
I just
Okay na ako doon.
Yes,
Okay
I
na
just
ako
want
doon.
to add, triggers can be based on price or on the availability of our reserves. No, we're trying to come up with the paper on this. Na halimbawa, pag ang inventory level natin is below 15, pero yung presyo mababa pa rin, it should trigger still. No, mga things like that,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, maraming salamat. Congressman Toby, go ahead.
No, I agree, Mr. Chair. No? Napakahalaga po kasi during the time of crisis na may announcement yung gobyerno na ganito yung cap because that gives people confidence na makakayanan yung problema. No? Madam Secretary. No? So napakahalaga yung may cap because pag nag-announce yung gobyerno ng cap, it shows na kontrolado ng gobyerno yung sitwasyon. No? So I would like to request you kung ano po yung rene-request nyong batas. Please send us the executive version.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, next po. Pag dumating yung pagkakataon, Mr. Chair, na bawasan yung excise tax or tanggalin yung excise tax kasi binigyan na ng kapangyarihan ng Kongreso ang executive branch, does the DOE have enough manpower to monitor na tama naman yung gagawin ng mga kumpanya? Kasi kung pababa yung presyo at tinanggal yung excise tax o pabataas yung presyo at tinanggal yung excise tax, dapat talagang na-apply nung oil companies doon sa mga fuel na dumating na walang excise tax. So papaano imo-monitor ng DOE yung dapat na wala ng excise tax kumpara doon sa sasabihin naman nila na ito may excise tax. So paano po yun?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yes, we don't have the manpower for this, but we have the local government units that they're very vigilant, and the PNP also. So we can work with them whenever we issue an advisory. They're the ones that are implementing and or assisting us, Mr. Chair. So meron naman tayong network na kaya yan, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So yung huli lang po, Mr. Chair, kanina
Pwede,
po kausap.
pwede bang in
Yes.
support of that?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yung, tama ba ako, Secretary Sharon, na yung sinasabi ninyo is yung part of the reason why nagiging, of course, limited ang ating manpower in terms of monitoring. So that's why nagre-rely tayo sa LGU. Pero yung nadidinig ko rin na isang suggestion is that one of the reasons why hindi natin na fully mobilize ang LGU for price monitoring is, correct me if I'm wrong, hindi kasama ang liquid petroleum, meaning gasolina, under the price control law o kung anong batas man ang tinutukoy. Pwede bang sabihan mo kami dyan? Kasi importante yung tanong ni Kong Toby so that we can incorporate it as part and parcel of whatever we will churn out in this committee.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Only kerosene, no? Kerosene and
LPG.
LPG are in the Price Act. So kung in times of emergency, DTI can freeze the price, not on gasoline or diesel, Mr. Chair.
So
Wala yan dyan.
kailangan ma-amend yung batas para masama yan. Tama ba ako? Hindi.
I think it's more prudent if the amendment is on the oil deregulation rather than on the Price Act, Mr. Chair.
Okay. We will take that into
Yes, Mr.
consideration. Go ahead, Congressman Toby.
Ang buti sinabi ni ang Congresswoman Garin yung Secretary Garin yung tungkol po sa LGU. But I think they have to give the LGU more powers eh. Alam niyo, for example, kagabi may nakita ako sa news sa Navotas Fishport na may may supposedly nagtitinda ng illegal na fuel, no? But may mga port kasing ganyan, for example, I think it's the same in other ports, na yung it has a special charter na yung Navotas Police hindi in charge doon sa peace and order situation doon sa port. Kasi according to the charter of the Navotas Fish Port, ang in charge doon sa peace and order is the maritime police. Parang ano yan to give an analogy, it's just like the airport na kahit nasa Pasay siya, merong ABSECOM sa loob na hindi local police ang nagpupulis doon. I think ganun din po ba, Congressman Valeriano, sa mga ports sa Manila?
Yeah, merong mga customs police naman.
Customs police, hindi yung local police, di ba? So, yes.
Tsaka hindi ABSICOM. Medyo
Ay, sorry.
1983 pa yun.
So, ano na po ba ngayon? Ano na ngayon, Chairman? Ano ba ang police sa loob ng airport?
Basta airport police na lang. Sige,
airport
go ahead,
police.
go ahead.
So, hindi, kasi doon mangyayari yung supposed smuggling. For example, doon sa mga pier doon sa Manila na hindi naman local police. So if you want the local government unit to be able to monitor, sana, I don't know kung paki-check na lang po sa legal department ninyo, sa executive branch, kung pwedeng during this time of fuel, ano ba tawag nyo? Fuel crisis?
Energy emergency.
Energy emergency, bigyan yung local government through the local police authority to inspect those areas, katulad ng Port of Manila, katulad yung fish port namin, na hindi strictly according to the charter na binabawalan nila yung local police doon. I think that will really help. I think madami pang port sa buong Pilipinas na ganyan ng sitwasyon na based on their charter, meron silang sariling police, hindi po yung local police.
Yes, Mr. Chair. In fact, we had to resort to the NDRRMC. We consider this as a disaster.
Yes.
So we triggered that with them, and they've been helping us with all the implementation. But yes, a more straightforward authorization to the LGU would have been clearer. Mr. Chair, if you can just indulge me in explaining. Ang problema kasi, if you notice when we announce the price, it goes on a range, di ba? Hindi siya definite na aakyat siya 20 pesos. We'll say it comes from 17 to 21 pesos. Why? Because it's a different structure every company. Every island is a different cost consequence, no? And transportation, insurance, and all. So, in times like this, I think it would be easier to implement. Kasi si Mayor, hindi niya alam kung ano ba talaga presyo. No? Because it goes in a range. So if there's more clarity on the authority of DOE and on the enforcement, siguro mas maayos yung pagkaka-implement and monitoring the compliance of the oil companies, Mr.
Yes, and last question, Mr. Chair. Kanina po, nag-usap na kami ni Secretary Garin. I was asking her, no, so that she can confirm now, during normal situations, okay naman yung Oil Deregulation Act, no?
Yes,
could you
Mr.
confirm?
Chair. Yes, Mr. Chair.
So you need additional powers during special times like this.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Mr. Chair, since my time is up, I will just request Secretary Garin to send her proposal on the amendments of the Oil Deregulation Act, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Congressman Toby.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just mechanically to all the members who are present today as well as on Zoom, really the objective here is to come up with an entire list of amendments which will necessarily be like, when we said bayanihan, we meant that it's going to be an omnibus amendment to address the current oil crisis. Because if we don't put it under a general omnibus act, it might be struck down as being unconstitutional because, as you all know, when we pass laws, there's only one subject per law. So when we go beyond that, unless we are able to present it in a manner that it is really a comprehensive address to address an extraordinary situation like today. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
thank you, Congressman Tiangco. From the majority, we now call on Representative Brian po.
Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, just to begin, I'd like to make a quick manifestation. Because at this point, we've spent billions already in terms of subsidies. 10 billion from the presidential assistance, 7 billion from rice tariffs, 150 million allocated by the DA for farmers and fisher folk in need of fuel subsidies, 1 billion from quick response. And of course, the DSWD is also setting aside billions and is going around as of today to help our kababayans in need. But the reality is, this is a stopgap measure, a band-aid solution. And we need to find more long-term solutions or at least support as well from the private sector. Mr. Chair, alam ko hindi po invited ang DOTR for today, but I would like to make an appeal or a manifestation to our friends in the private sector, no, especially the platforms, the ride-hailing apps, Lalamove, Grab, Angkas. Kung pwede, bawasan kahit konti yung profit nyo para mas malaki ang kita ng mga riders natin. Kailangan nila ngayon. The difference in percentage that you would hold as a platform is the difference of whether or not yung mga anak nila may pagkain today, tomorrow, the next day, because of this fuel crisis. Kaya para sa akin, alam ko wala yung DOTR today, but when they do come, sana po may solution sila. And sana po yung mga ride-hailing platforms will indulge the population. Kasi government is doing its part. Nagbibigay na tayo ng fuel subsidies. Nag-discuss and we finally had the signature for the excise tax law. We're asking help from the private sector para whole of the nation approach tayo pagdating sa fuel crisis issue. With that being said, Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask a few questions. First, I want to ask the DOE Secretary kung totoo po na may chance na aabot ng 200 pesos ang cost ng fuel natin and kung totoo na hindi na bababa ulit below 100 pesos. Is this true?
Mr. Chair, will it go up to 200? Honestly, I don't know, and I don't think anybody knows yet because, like mentioned earlier, there was a pronouncement of a ceasefire, but there are threats going back and forth. Whenever there's a oil infrastructure destroyed in whatever country, the price spikes. Then babagsak na naman, and then suddenly something else happens. So we don't have any visibility of where this will go. And unfortunately, we are so dependent on what's happening there. So, so it could happen, depending on what the two countries do, no? But will it go down to 100? And that's actually what we've been discussing. 20% is from the Middle East, 80% from the rest of the world. Now, if the war stops today, will the 20% be able to deliver? I think it will take some months because most of the infrastructure, especially LNG, has been destroyed. And I think LNG in Qatar will take 5 years to fix. And then all the other pipelines and all the other infrastructure of Middle East on oil. So although the war will stop, there has been structural change in the industry. So, pati yung supply, 80% na lang we can rely on for now. And that is still expensive, no? Why do we get from Middle East, or why does South Korea get from Middle East? Because it's faster and cheaper. So, I think the problem will stay longer than the war itself. So, if it ever goes back to 100 pesos or below, it will take some time, Mr. Chair. That's my assessment, Mr. Chair.
Ito yung takot ko kasi, Mr. Chair. May kausap akong rider yesterday. Tinanong ko siya, at what price would you stop your job? Lipat ka sa ibang trabaho. Ang sabi niya, pag umabot ng 200 pesos, sabi niya, titigilan na niya ang trabaho niya, lilipat siya sa ibang trabaho. This is a stern warning to all of us na we need to revisit our deregularization law immediately because we cannot wait until that crisis occurs and suddenly wala na tayong riders, wala na tayong delivery dahil dito at umabot tayo ng 200 pesos. At now, the second question I want to ask, kasi marami nagtatanong sa akin, may posibilidad na bumalik tayo sa rolling brownouts across the country.
Mr. Chair, as to the power side, again, the diesel is only 3% of our fuel in electricity. Although that gives us some comfort, the price, however, of LNG is triple na. LNG with the first gas yun, and also the LNG PH, medyo naging mahal na yung imported. Lucky enough, we have Malampaya as a buffer. Coal and the other fuel, except for renewable, nag-i-increase din siya, pero not as much, maybe 20%. So, the question is there available supply for electricity? Yes, Mr. Chair. Will there be an increase? That is what DOE and ERC have been working on. So far na-soften namin yung increase niya, nabawasan siya because we amped up the cheaper fuel and lowered the generation of the expensive fuel, meaning diesel and LNG. So if there is any brownouts, it's not because of the crisis, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, para klaro, para sa mga kababayan natin, we will not be expecting any brownouts because of the crisis. If there are brownouts, they are for other reasons, no?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Aside from that, I also wanted to ask, may proposal kasi ang iba't ibang mga civic organizations, isa dito ang PolPhil. Ang sabi nila, baka pwede natin i-explore ang 4-day work week or work from home for non-essential staff or workers. Ang estimate nila is if we have a 4-day work week, we're looking at 12 to 15% reduction in our national fuel consumption. Is this something that the energy sector or even our economic sector is exploring?
Mr. Chair, the President has already mandated 10 to 20% savings. And also on the part of DOE, we have managed to save also with that arrangement, less number of days, more work from home than in office. We've saved about around 60%. So it is a good measure. I think all of the agencies are already practicing. 80% are compliant so far as we've done the audit of all the buildings. So I think that's a good measure to adopt, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I just want to clarify na hindi lang to para sa government. I'm also asking if it is feasible or if it is a good idea for private sector to consider the 4-day work week model or work from home.
Mr. Chair, we can only recommend, but I think that would be more for the industries to determine, Mr. Chair.
Baka DepDev
Can we ask the
or-
Secretary Balisacan, what is the DepDev's take on encouraging or even providing incentives to the private sector to reduce their work days?
The private sector is so diversified, so heterogeneous. They face different conditions, different types of workers, different industries. So it's hard to have a one-size-fits-all kind of practice for say 4-day week work, no? But we can encourage them definitely if their work processes or production processes allow such 4-day work or even more. I think that we should encourage them, and we can use some tools to incentivize that process. But definitely, for example, manufacturing, it's probably hard to require. To insist for a 4-day work for the manufacturing sector.
Mr. Chair, changing topics naman po, marami nagtatanong kung pwede tayo magkaroon ng strategic reserves, no? From 45 days to even a buffer of 90 days. Pero base doon sa calculations ko, kung magda 90 days tayo, abot tayo ng 176 billion pesos just to invest for that. From the DOE, is this a strategic investment, if ever, given the circumstance? Kasi ang problema natin, we're held hostage by the global market. And 1 week may gera, the next week may ceasefire. Mahirap talaga yan. And it's the unpredictability that is breaking the back of the average Filipino worker. So is this an investment we should consider making? Malapit din ang budget season. And as you said before, the repercussions of what we're facing today will not end with the war. It may even continue beyond that.
Mr. Chair, strategic reserves is one of the solutions, but there could be also, it might be, depends on the fiscal space that we have, but we can also do a partnership with the private also for this project, you know. But there are several ways to embark on this. But I just wanted to add, Mr. Chair, there are also other things that we can do, more long-term than that probably, because we need to have energy, more than energy, fuel sovereignty. Now, we should not be we should be independent in ourselves on our fuel. So, we need to have more indigenous oil, Mr. Chair. We need to electrify our transportation, or even use more renewable. So there are other, we will present this once it's ready, but there are other activities that we can, or measures that we can do to keep us less, to make us less vulnerable in things and in events like this, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, on that note, matagal ko na sinasabi na kailangan tayo maging mas sustainable and kailangan natin ng energy diversification because exactly this, it's a national security concern. Now we're held hostage by the global market. And with that note, the question ng mga kababayan natin is saan magagaling ang pondo para sa energy diversification natin? Is it something that we can explore na possibly the Maharlika Fund, which has been stagnant until now, can finally be mobilized for emergency energy diversification?
Unfortunately, that's the last question, but a very important question. Maybe we can ask Secretary Balisacan. Maharlika is in fact being used already to, insofar as the energy sector is concerned. Am I correct?
Exactly, Mr. Chair, yeah. In the transmission sector. But I think, you know, of course, if it meets the objectives of the Maharlika, must be sustainably profitable, then and I think that industry is quite profitable, so it should be a good project. But I think the point about the diversification, energy diversification is very critical, and we should explore many ways, but at the same time engage the private sector to be a key driver for that because of the massive investment requirements for that.
Mr. Chair, I bow to the wisdom of our economic team and our energy team. Thank you for your answers, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for the time.
Thank you very much. We now call on a member of the minority. May we now call on the Honorable Sara Ilago. You have the floor, Kong Sara.
Maraming salamat, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, nag-report ang DMW ng mga napauwi na mga OFWs at dependent. Ilan ho ba ang mga request naman for repatriation mula dito sa 7 locations na naiulat nyo?
Meron tayong sa kabuuan na 15,966 repatriation requests na natanggap. However, I'd like to distinguish a repatriation request from somebody who is actually repatriation ready kasi meron pong iba sa mga nagre-request ay merong immigration record so cannot immediately be repatriated, in which case the legal group comes in to process. So with that category, merong around 3,800 na repatriation ready, in process ang kanilang repatriation documents. But the universe is 15,000. Another category is those who back out. There is somebody who will say, I'm interested, but sometimes the situation is dictated by the circumstance, the request is dictated by the circumstances, the interest. Halimbawa, you will look at Qatar, where there has been a recent pronouncement na back to school intention of the government to have face-to-face schooling once again. So that is seen as a positive sign, a sign of better things. So that has also, yung mga pronouncements na ganon, trigger yon, to use Sec Sharon's term, is a trigger for some to say, teka, wag muna. I'm sorry for the qualifications because I just like to explain why the universe of 15,966 has to be qualified.
Mr. Chair, yung nasa 12,000 plus, napakadami nito, nasa 3 beses doon sa mga repatriation ready na. Mr. Chair, kasama ba dito yung mga undocumented OFWs natin sa 12,000?
Yes, yes.
If
Actually,
yes, Mr. Chair, let me just ask directly, since you also raised this before when we had the briefing on the second week of March regarding issues on repatriation, na nagkakaproblema ho kayo sa issuance ng mga outpass, sa processing, no, ng kung paano mas mapapabilis yung kanilang pagiging repatriation ready. Meron na hubang update, no, kung merong emergency measure kung paano mapapabilis at hindi tayo dun sa business as usual na pina-follow natin na process bago itong gera?
Definitely, we're working closely with our embassies kasi ang formal representation then needs the help of our ambassadors, notes verbal and such. But yes, definitely, nakakatulong yung action fund na binigay ninyo because we get to hire lawyers. Incidentally, hindi apektado sa budgeting yung lawyers kasi the legal retainership agreements are formalized and paid out at the beginning of the year. So bayad na yung mga lawyers natin for the rest of the year. Hindi yan apektado dun sa budget natin na abnormal utilization, I would say. So our lawyers are stepping up and our host country cooperation, yun hong binabanggit ni Pangulo na maayos, maganda ang relasyon natin with all the Gulf states, including the state of Israel, of course, the Levant states such as Jordan and Lebanon. And that facilitates the process. Yung po sinasabi ko kaninang one might not be repat ready, that pretty much applies to an undocumented person because an undocumented person will have, should I say, a flag record sa immigration ng host country. Yun, tinututukan po ng ating mga abogado at wala ho akong personal na kaalaman na mga nahirapan o na-block completely na makauwi dito sa krisis na to. Nakakauwi po. Saudi is a classic example. Well-processed ng ating Saudi government counterparts yung mga documentation.
Mr. Chair, hindi ba pwedeng ma-waive itong outpass requirement at mag-issue na tayo agad? Kasi nakakuha din kami ng reports na syempre hirap sila. They were required to report dun sa mga malapit na mga police stations, which in many cases sarado din no, sa panahon ho ng gera. At hindi nila maasikaso yung mga kailangan na requirements para mapabilis itong proseso na ito.
To a certain extent, meron pong mga flexibilities. By way of example, yung mga land crossings natin, may flexibility. Halimbawa, if one is crossing from out of Kuwait or Bahrain, the Al-Khafji crossing in Kuwait and the King Fahd Causeway in Bahrain, meron pong flexibility in a sense na yung Saudi entry is waived as long as umalis yung tao, yung OFW natin within a 48-hour window. So meron na hong mga ganong klaseng flexibilities. Ibig sabihin, upon arrival. So halimbawa, kung may tumatawid na Pilipino sa King Fahd Causeway from Bahrain to KSA, hindi kailangan mag-apply sa bureaucracy ng KSA kasi you can appear at the border and say, can I cross? And then the Saudi side will say, oh sige, as long as you leave Saudi within the 48-hour period. So may mga ganong flexibilities po na sa ayos. Now, yung outpasses from the host country, let's say Bahrain, napakaayos po, napakaayos, Ambassador Galyaga, among many ambassadors in the Gulf, have been very facilitative and very coordinative sa host government to properly coordinate yung mga outpasses. As I mentioned, Madam Congresswoman, Mr. Chair, I assure you, I do not know of a particular case na pinahirapan sa outpass yung kababayan natin. By way of example, sorry po, I just have many examples. Galing akong Dubai. Doon sa meeting area, meron dong kababaihan na nag-chance lang siya. No, she's a domestic worker in UAE. Nag-chance lang siya to leave as fast as she can. And on that same day, wala siyang outpass. And on that same day, nakakuha siya ng outpass. And sa konversasyon namin, na-book na siya ng labat namin 2 days after that day. So ganun ka convenient. Well, convenient, or should I, hindi naman convenient, but should I say facilitated ang process?
Mr. Chair, pwede ba nating i-release itong particular report na pinapapunta pa sa police station na sa cases ay sarado, kaya ho nahihirapan sila
Sige
na
po.
makakuha ng mga requirements?
Sige po,
Let me-
having said that, of course, each case can be peculiar as in contrast to others. We need to know more details about this particular police station case. As I said, there can be a case na parang dito rin sa atin, kumbaga NBI clearance may hit yung tao pag nag-secure ng clearance, in which case baka kailangan i-address ang isang pending criminal case, pending police investigation, or some other, should I say, immigration issue. Pwede po yun, Madam Chair, Madam Congresswoman, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Tungkol naman dun sa mga OFWs na nag-report na hindi po sila makaalis dahil nag-evacuate na yung kanilang mga employers at iniwan sila para magbantay ng bahay. So these are OFWs who are engaged in domestic work. May nakuha na po ba kayong mga ulat tungkol dito?
Yes.
At paano ang ginagawa natin para
Yes.
matulungan ang ating mga
Yes.
kababayan?
Yes, we have received reports. It's sort of mixed in the sense that may mga OFW domestic workers who are fine with the idea. Naiwan sila, caretaker approach. So they don't mind. They continue to be paid and they feel that they are safe in the confines of their employer's home. However, tama po kayo, Madam Congresswoman, meron din talagang feeling na kailangan gusto niya niyang umuwi. Kaya't ang sinasagawa po natin dito, ang labor attachés natin, welfare officers ni Admin PY, kinakausap yung employer or if out of reach ang employer, yung mismong host government. Kasi ang basic principle dyan is nobody can be compelled to stay in the confines of one's employer's establishment by force. So, meron pong tayong approach na kinakausap yung employer. Kung may foreign recruitment agency involved, kinakausap yung FRA. And then, of course, the host government. And I must say, ang cooperation natin with let's say, with the Saudi police authorities, Ministry of Interior ng Saudi, Ministry of Labor ng Saudi, is very strong.
Mr. Chair, nag-report kanina ang OWA na 48% na yung nagamit sa ERF at 52% na lang ang meron. Considering na may 15,000 requests, itong 52% ba hanggang gaano katagal ito? At ilan lang ang mako-cover niyan doon sa dinami-dami ng mga requests para makauwi dito sa ating bansa? Meron na bang projection ang OWA sa kinakailangan na dagdag pondo para sa repatriation?
Can I answer first, and then I'll turn it over to, with the permission of the chair, to Admin PY. We're good for the existing repatriation requests. As I mentioned, we're due to receive 800 million from Secroli, Toledo. But having said that, if we are to project, yung tanong ni Chair Miro po kanina, if we are to project, if this conflict goes on in the coming weeks and months, then ibang usapan na po yun. Kaya pumasok yung aming proposed 7.2 billion to shoulder chartering costs, commercial flight costs, as well as financial assistance, because if this situation drags on, nakikita na natin ang potential work disruptions, work reductions ng mga kababayan natin. So, I'm sorry, I ate into Admin PY's time.
Mr. Chair, dagdag ko lang. So yung 7.2 billion is only for repatriation. Hindi ba dito kasama yung mga gastos para sa reintegration ng mga uuwi?
Yes, the repatriation, and mainly repatriation and financial assistance. Most of it financial assistance, and some of it medical and food, but most of it financial and transport.
Mr. Chair, in line with what our secretary said, based on our actual cost na po ito ng latest numbers or cost of repatriation, umaabot na po ng 120,000, no? But that includes financial assistance and initial startup livelihood assistance under the OWA reintegration program. So kung susumahin po to at doon sa remaining na 52%, sa amin pong simulation, nung unang buwan po na mula Feb 28 hanggang end of March, nagkaroon po tayo ng repatriation na umabot ng 3,000 po. No? So base po sa aming computation, meron pa po tayo mga hanggang 3 buwan pagdating po sa ERF. Nag-request na po kami noong end of March, and we wrote a letter to, and nagpapasalamat po kami kay Secretary Toledo ng DBM sa buong suporta. At of course, ito po ay na-raise na rin namin sa ating mahal na Pangulo through the Office of the Executive Secretary. Ang need po namin for supplemental budget, Mr. Chair. Kasi po, syempre, gusto sana namin ang aming pong forecasting ay we are expecting yung worst case scenario po. Yung po ang planning namin. Sa panahong ito, kung ang aming pong forecast na worst case ay hindi tama, mabuti po yun, no? But we want to prepare for the worst case scenario, Mr. Chair. Kaya po nag-request na rin po kami ng supplemental budget para po sa Emergency Repatriation Fund. Madagdag ko lang, Mr. Chair, yung tanong po sa reintegration. Patungkol po sa OWA, ang reintegration po for the active members of OWA ay funded by the OWA Trust Fund. At ayon po sa charter ng OWA, 5% po ang naka-allocate dito. Sa taong ito po ay umaabot ng 919 million pesos. Nabigyan din po tayo at maraming salamat po sa Kongreso ng bagong line item. Ito po yung alagang OWA na line item. Meron din po ditong pondo para po sa upskilling at meron din po for other reintegration projects. So sa amin po, meron pa po kaming under the trust fund din, if I may also disclose, Mr. Chair, meron din po tayo yung tinatawag na Overseas Contingency Fund, no? Ito po ay 500 million pesos. Ano po ito? Replenishable. Pero may I stress also, this is the OWA Trust Fund na po ito. Ito po ay pribadong trust fund at mula po ito sa mga kontribusyon ng ating mga member na OFWs, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Chair, kailangan natin buong suportahan itong request ng DMW OWA. Pero ang sana ho, bigyan natin ng malaking pondo rin yung trabaho mismo dito sa Pilipinas. No? Kasi marami ho doon sa mga nananatili, nating mga OFW sa kabila ng gera. Hindi naman talaga voluntary, pero parang forced economic coercion dahil lang sa walang disenteng trabaho at nakabubuhay na sahod. Kailangan ng trabaho at buong suporta para sa kabuhayan. Ngayon naman, Mr. Chair, tungkol sa seafarers, nahanap na ho ba yung nawawalang Filipino seafarer noong na-report nyo ho dito nitong Marso?
Hindi pa rin po. Yung incidente happened around the first week of March. With the DFA, there has been coordination with the Omani Navy. It happened about 16 nautical miles from the Omani portion territory that is close to the Strait of Hormuz. Kaya't hindi pa rin po talaga siya mahanap. We are in coordination with the family provided assistance, and I myself will be headed to um, the home province, to the family, to the wife, to the spouse, to personally assure her of our continuing support and assistance.
Mr. Chair, nakakalungkot ho na balita at nakakaalarma rin kasi ang report ng DMW nasa 6,000 plus pa ho yung ating mga seafarers at ang presentation ng DFA nasa 0.007% lang nito yung mga Philippine registered ships. Ibig sabihin, kalakhan nito flags of convenience, kumbaga hindi po nakarehistro sa Pilipinas. So paano po ba makakaapekto itong naging usap natin sa Iran tungkol sa pagtitiyak ng safe passage sa ating mga seafarers sa ibang mga vessels? That's one, Mr. Chair. Tapos pangalawa ho, yung available support sa mga stranded na for more than a month na mga seafarers natin. Kasi marami din pong mga reports na kulang sa tubig, kulang sa pagkain. Paano po ang suporta para sa kanila?
I'll just take on the second question kasi DFA po, the two undersecretaries are here. Yun pong, we have been monitoring the situation since day one. Inatasan kami ni Pangulo, ni Sec. Tess Lazaro to monitor the well-being of our OFWs. That includes our seafarers. So, as I said, we have an electronic means to gather reports on their well-being through the licensed manning agencies who deployed them, and as well as the ship owners. As I said, the ships are either anchored or docked in the coastlines, in the port areas, in the ports along Saudi, Qatar, and UAE. And they have been provided adequate food, water, and other supplies that on average will last them on 30-45 day cycles. And ito pong yung binabanggit ko rin po kanina, na ibabahagi rin ng mga ship owners na merong adequate supplies. There's no question, and they will continually provide our workers with such adequate supplies. We are also personally in touch with some of the seafarers who are on board. Kaya napupulsuhan din ho namin ang kalagayan nila. We have mental health helplines together with the International Transport Federation and the AMOSUP to hear them out, to gather information also about their well-being on board. And then nabanggit ko rin po kanina, pati yung contractual entitlements, yung 80% allotment that is forthcoming to their families. We always make sure na all 5,600 seafarers along the Persian Gulf ay tuloy-tuloy yung sweldo para sa kabuhayan ng kanilang mga pamilya. And 80% of that by contract does not go to them, it goes straight to their families. So their families are spoken for while they are there, and we're making sure of that. But for the first question, Madam Congresswoman, Mr. Chair, our colleagues at the DFA, the two undersecretaries are here po. Yusek Mayan.
Mr. Chair, tungkol lang dun sa yung kaso, yung number ba na binigay niyo ho dito na seafarers, lahat po ba ito ay officially declared or recorded sa kanilang mga agencies prior deployment?
Yes.
Kasi po, nakita rin ho natin sa mga balita na yung nawawala pong Filipino seafarer ay hindi po na-register ng kanyang agency prior to deployment.
Yes. What we have done, yung dun sa nawawalang seafarer, he worked for a tugboat, which is of course a smaller ship, and right, possible na wala sa talaan natin, but assured po na yung 5,600 may line list po lahat yan. Kilala namin sila lahat down to their home addresses, which means their families, contact information about their families. Ngayon po, to address yung matter ng possibility na actually yung nasa tugboat, he is still in our database but in another capacity. So he is still protected in terms of him being in our database and being covered also by the OWA, whether on active or inactive capacity. Ang ginagawa naman po natin doon, nakikipag-coordinate yung ating labor attaché, let's say kung UAE yan, sa Dubai Maritime Authorities. So doon natin nalalaman yung mga barko na nakadock o nakaangkorahe along the UAE coastline, yung sa western side ng UAE, the Dubai side, that faces the Persian Gulf. So, meron din tayong kaalaman kung sino sila, in terms of the smaller ships, number one, and number two, kahit yung mga hindi nasa talaan natin na seafarers, alam din po natin kung may Pilipino on board doon sa mga ships na yun.
Mr. Chair, two things na panawagan ho ng ating mga seafarers. First, yung mas mataas na info dissemination ho tungkol sa legal right to refuse deployment in war-risk areas, number one. And then number two ho, yung legal hotlines then for coercion, tsaka yung forced deployment sa mga war zone areas. Now let me go to, baka maubusan na po ako ng oras. May question po sa DOE. Sa excise tax po, kailan ho ba mag-implement ng fuel excise tax cut? Ayan. Kasi ang bilis po manghingi ng emergency power, pero ang bagal naman po ng aksyon pagdating sa pagsususpinde nitong excise tax sa oil.
Mr. Chair, I think
Yeah,
this
go
is a
ahead. That
question
is your
more,
last question, Congresswoman
but
Ilago.
I
Go
think
ahead, Secretary.
this is more a question for the DOF siguro.
May
Mr.
we
Chair.
ask Yusek Adriano, please?
Mr. Chair, in the law, there's a 15 days effectivity. So the law was signed, I think, March 25, and then it was published around March 26, and hence the effectivity will be on April 13, if I'm not mistaken, around that date. But the DBCC already met, and we have already presented our recommendation to the President.
What is the
Which is when?
recommendation?
Opo. When po?
Mr. Chair, I cannot disclose the recommendation yet, subject for the approval.
Why not? No, explain to us why not, so that we will understand.
Mr. Chair, hindi pwede yan kasi sabi sa atin pagkatapos daw ho ng DBCC meeting ay i-update po ang taong bayan tungkol dito. Pero bakit hanggang ngayon ho ay hindi sinasabi sa atin kung kailan ba i-implement itong fuel excise tax cut? Ito na nga lang yung inaasahan ng mga kababayan natin para kahit papaano ay mabawasan yung ginagastos nila sa araw-araw dahil sa crisis na
Is
ito.
it the position of our economic managers that you want to leave it to the President to make the announcement, considering that it is he who will make the final decision? Is this the position of the DBCC?
Yes, yes, Mr.
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
thank you very much. Much to the consternation of Congresswoman Ilago, I will give you your last pun. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, hindi ba nagpo-propose ang DOE? Kasi di ba bukod sa excise tax cut, malaki din ang tulong kung pati yung VAT tatanggalin. Relief sa ating mga kababayan. Kasi wala kayong magawa sa presyo ng oil. Pero ito, pwede kayong magrekomenda na masuspende yung VAT o kung pwede maibasura na natin, bakit hindi nyo ho gawin? At pagdating din sa Price Act, no, sinabi din kanina na hindi kailangan isama ang diesel at gasoline. Bakit ho hindi natin isasama? Nasa panahon na tayo ngayon ng krisis na sobrang hirap na. Hindi lang po yung mga may hirap, pero maski yung mga middle class natin, talagang struggling na sa panahon na ito. Bakit hindi yun isama sa mga recommendations? We'll take cue from you, from our agencies pagdating dito. At mahalaga, Mr. Chair, maisama natin sa Price Act itong diesel, gasoline, at suspindihin na rin muna natin ang VAT, lalong-lalo na sa langis.
Pwede,
Mr. Chair.
ang kasagutan dyan ay kapag nag-present ng DBCC, tingin ko napaka-importante nung tanong, I'd rather that we explain it at length. With the indulgence of Congresswoman Ilago.
Mr. Chair, gusto ko lang malaman kung nag-recommend bang DOE din na isuspend ang VAT. No? Kasi matagal na po itong panawagan, lalo na ng transport sector, para mabilis po na madama yung relief agad sa taas ng presyo ng langis.
Mr. Chair, even without the war, DOE always stood by the fact that any measure that will lower the price, we are supporting. But we leave it to the economic managers on the recommendation kung ano yan. Because that is, a tax measure is not for DOE to recommend, Mr. Chair.